bias, attachment, and hatred. To the founder, the endowed, the sin and destroyer, the one God beyond, the foe destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sagata, knower of the world, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and human beings, to you, the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed, the sin and destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the seer of the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. To the founder, the endowed, the sin and destroyer, the one God beyond, the foe destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sagata, knower of the world, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and human beings, to you, the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed, transcend and destroyer, the glorious conqueror, seer of the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. To the founder, the endowed, transcend and destroyer, the one God beyond, the foe destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, Sugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and human beings, to you, the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed, transcend and destroyer, the glorious conqueror, seer of the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. We know supreme among humans, you were born on this earth, you paced out 7 strides and said, I am supreme in this world. To you who are wise then I prostrate. With pure bodies formed supremely pure, wisdom ocean like a golden mountain, fame that blazes in the 3 worlds, winner of the best sword, to you I prostrate. With a supreme science, face like spotless moon, color like gold, to you I prostrate. Dust free like you, the 3 worlds are not, incomparably wise ones, to you I prostrate. The Savior having great compassion, the Founder having all understanding, the field of merit with qualities like the vast ocean, to you, the one gone to thusness I prostrate. The purity that frees one from attachment, the virtue that frees one from the lower realms, the one path, the sublime pure reality, to the Dharma that pacifies I prostrate. Those who are liberated and also show the path for liberation, the holy field qualified with realization, who are devoted to the moral precepts, to you, the sublime community intending virtue, I prostrate. Homage to the Supreme Buddha, homage to the Dharma refuge, homage to the great Sangha, to all 3 ever devout, to all worthy of respect, bowing with bodies as many as all round atoms in all aspects, with supreme faith I pay homage. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions, perform only perfect virtuous actions. Subdue your mind thoroughly, this is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, a mirage, the flame of a lamp, an illusion, a drop of dew or a bubble, a dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud, see conditioned things as such. Through these merits may sentient beings attain the rank of all seeing, subdue the 4 faults and be delivered from samsara's ocean, perturbed by the waves of aging, sickness, and death. From Tushita's hundreds of gods, protectors high, to tip of this fresh, pure white heat, good like cloud, Olos of Raha, Dharma's omniscient king, pray come to this place with your disciples, in space ahead on my throne, lotus and moon, venerable gurus, smile brightly with delight, praise say hundreds of eons to spread doctrine, as supreme merit, feel for my mind of faith, your wisdom mind sees full range of knowables, your eloquence speech adorns fortunate ears, your beauteous body, fame, glory, outstanding, homage to you with what you think of, hear and see, pleasant offerings of water, various flowers, fragrant incense, light perfume, and so on. Oceans of offerings set out and envisioned, offered up to you, supreme field of merit, non-virtue committed with body, speech, and mind, which I have heaped up since beginning this time, especially what has contradicted 3 vows, each I confess from my heart with strong regret. In time of strife you strove to learn and practice essence made life essence full. O protector from depths of our hearts, we rejoice in your powerful great deeds. Venerable Gurus from love and wisdom, vows last in your Dharma kaya sky. Pray loose the rain of last profound Dharma on fields of disciples just as needed. May whatever virtue that I fear gather bring benefit to all beings and doctrine, and may it make venerable Lobsang essential teaching, specially shine forever. Gyume se wei ter chen rezi, Gyume peng pei wang po Jang du pung lu zhong se song wei Lang chen kei pei Urgyen Tsongkhapa, Lobsang pei Jagla so wadu. O glorious and precious root Guru, pray take seat of lotus on my crown, caring for me with your great kindness. Bestow attainments of body, speech, and mind. O glorious and precious root Guru, pray take seat of lotus at my heart, caring for me with your great kindness. Bestow attainments common and supreme. O glorious and precious root Guru, pray take seat of lotus at my heart, caring for me with your great kindness, until supreme awakening remains steadfast. Homage to the exalted three jewels. Thus have I heard at one time the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajagriha on Vulture Mountain, together with a great assembly of monks and a great assembly of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One was absorbed in the concentration of the countless aspects of phenomena called profound illumination. At that very time, Sphere Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the great being, was looking perfectly at the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom, perfectly looking at the emptiness of inherent existence of the five aggregates also. Into the power of the Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra said to Sphere Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the great being, how should a child of the lineage strain who wishes to engage in the practice of profound perfection of wisdom? Thus he spoke, and Sphere Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the great being, replied to the Venerable Shariputra as follows. Shariputra, whichever son or daughter of the lineage wishes to engage in the practice of profound perfection of wisdom, should look perfectly like this. Subsequently, looking perfectly and correctly at the emptiness and inherent existence of the five aggregates also. The form is empty, emptiness is form, emptiness is not other than form is not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discrimination, compositional practice, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, like this, all phenomena are empty, without characteristics. As they are not produced and they do not cease, they have no defilement and no separation from defilement. They have no decrease and no increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no compositional practice, no consciousness. There is no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no visible form, no sound, no smell, no taste, no object of touch, no mental phenomena. There is no eye element and so forth, up to no mind element, up to no element of mental consciousness. There is no ignorance and no cessation of ignorance, and so forth, up to no aging and death, and no cessation of aging and death. Likewise, there is no suffering, no origin, no cessation, no path, no exalted wisdom, no attainment, and also no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, because there is no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on and abide in the perfection of wisdom, and because their minds have no obstructions, they have no fear. Passing utterly beyond error, they attain the final state beyond sorrow. All the Buddhas who reside in the three times by relying on the perfection of wisdom become manifest and complete Buddhas in a state of unsurpassed, perfect, and complete enlightenment. Therefore, therefore the mantra of the perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, the unsurpassed mantra, the equal to the unequal mantra, the mantra that thoroughly pacifies all suffering, since it is not false, should be known as the truth. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is proclaimed. Dayata, Gate, Paragate, Parasamgate, Holy Soul. Shariputra, this is how Bodhisattva, great beings who train in the profound perfection of wisdom. Then the Blessed One arose from that concentration and said to the sphere Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the great being, well said, of child of the lineage, so it is. Profound perfection of wisdom should be practiced exactly as you have taught, and the Tathagatas will rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, the Venerable Shariputra, sphere Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the great being, and the entire assembly as well as worldly beings, gods, humans, demigods, Gandharvas, and others, were filled with admiration and highly praised what had been spoken by the Blessed One. In the holy supreme abode of the Dakinis, possessed of clairvoyance and miraculous power, unwaveringly caring for practitioners as her children, homage to the host of the three places Dakinis. Akasamarajas Panasamarajas. Tayata Om Gate Paragate Parasamgate Puri Soha. Through the power of truth and the exalted three-jewel speech, may all inside of negativity, such as the full Mars, be shut. May they become non-existent. May they be purified. All enemies, obstructors, and hindrances, Sante Puri Soha. The 80,000 types of obstructors pacified, freed from adverse harmful conditions. May all be conducive to perfect auspiciousness, bring happiness and well-being here right now.
Good morning. Happy Chugo Tushan. Happy teaching them?
First time of the will of Dharma.
Fourth time the will of Dharma. It's yesterday, not today. It's hot. You guys hot? Okay. Do we need AC? You okay?
The AC?
You guys like AC or you can
It's still good?
open window?
Okay.
Okay? Anyway, it's wonderful. We able to study a little bit, practice a little bit, meditation a little bit every day. A little bit meditation is very important. Otherwise, we study, then we don't meditate, we don't put into practice, then that doesn't much change our mind. Right? When you practice your meditation, then you have some experience. When you have some experience, then your practice will be more stable, more stronger. You will have more interest. Like kids get candy, couldn't stop. You say, okay, Sam, yeah, they talk about that. Oh yeah, not that. Oh yeah, not that. Just you heard, you feel also you understand, but we don't put into practice, then just, of course, we get some merit. Like that. Therefore, every day to meditation, some couple minutes. Okay? There are many different ways of meditation. First, we are the beginner person. We think we are no beginner. I'm studying Buddhism 20 years, 15 years, 10 years. We are beginner and beginner. Like Buddhism is not same as the study for other subjects. How much you study, how much your meditation, you have to go more deep. Then it be helpful for our mind. Okay? Now today we do a little meditation. Anyone think in front of us, like Buddha Shakyamuni, like same that. Now like statue is a real person, a real Buddha. All the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas around Buddha. Sometimes we have to so Manjushri is here, Buddha Amitabha was there. It's a little complicated. We don't know what kind, shape or Manjushri. They just all the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, all from us. Then try to first you look at the Buddha's face. Buddha's statue is the remember for Buddha, like remind, like same as our pictures. When we can see our old pictures, they say, oh, I was very young that time. Now I am a little bit old. Like therefore, front us, Buddha Shakyamuni, try to look at the Buddha's face. Keep that. And in front of us, around us, all Mother Sentient beings. To thinking, I wish to all sentient beings free from suffering and become like Buddha. Like that kind of wish, looking for Buddha's face without lose. Like same as Buddha statue. looking the Buddha's face, wish to all sentient beings free from suffering. Then, like Buddhas, Bodhisattvas give the blessing us to let light, the different colored lights hit our body, then wash for our all negative things, all negative thoughts. We feel for our bodies, complete body and mind, complete clean, complete clear person. Then we feel happy. And happy feeling will be shared for all sentient beings. Then thinking all sentient beings be happy feeling. Keep that moment. Okay, that's good. But those airplane be too loud. They disturb our meditation. Today that 계산 먼저 그래도 좀 비슷해. 아니 산지 좀 된다고야. 중국 토마 그 밑에 자요 그래서.
Not used to this one now. So yesterday was the first day of the the returning of the Dharma, which means Buddha Shakyamuni giving the teaching after he gained enlightenment for the first time.
아니 산지 좀 된데 그 주대 딱 끼리 말하면 이게 독송을 해서 요나로 제바이나.
So in general, it is said that Buddha taught his teachings in two different languages.
아니 지금 빨리 나와서 말해. 지금 산케서 말해서.
So one is in Pali and one is in Sanskrit.
아니 빨리 나와서 오셔가지고 마찬가지로 테라바라 트레시데 자되게 그래서.
So the teaching that was taught in the Pali language, was followed on by the Theravada traditions.
아니 대냠내생에 조대 가서 전대왕도 시나 아니 인투다랑 자세 딱 군이도 자게 그래서.
So in terms of the
아무튼 돌스죠. 내려오죠. 네. His ears too big. No, that do that kapalos.
So
No, kapalos.
let's go.
This you had tenna. Temple.
Yeah. Oh no. Okay. So according to the tenets, then it falls under the category of like hearers and soul-realizers vehicle.
좋아. 아니 다 되게 테라바라 냠내 생기대 가서 스리랑카지, 버미지, 아니 타일랜드, 아니 캄보디아, 다들 또 자되겠어.
So those countries like Thailand, Sri Lanka, Burma, and Cambodia are the main countries that follow the Theravada tradition.
아니 니와데 산스케데 가서다 대화 친구의 욕소 이래서
And the other language is the Sanskrit language that Buddha taught his teachings in, and that was mainly the teachings of the Mahayana traditions. And so the tenets or the proponents of the tenets who practice these teachings of the Mahayana vehicle are the mind-only school and the middle way school, yes. And then the Mahayana teaching also has two different kind of traditions, like the Sutra teachings, two different teachings, Sutra teaching and Tantra teachings. And so those two teachings that Buddha taught about the Mahayana Sutra teaching were given during the second turning of the wheel of Dharma, which is in the Rajgira, Vulture's Mountain, and then the third teaching, which he gave in a place called Vaishali.
Okay. And then today, today, ta sankeji, and the sonsagi te nyamle chingi to, and the jawi shochi, and the pewa, jana, and the Korea, and the Vietnam, that was
and then these teachings, taught in the Sanskrit language, for the Mahayana vehicles followers, and so the teachings, follow down, through these different countries, like some part of India and Tibet, of course, and China, and Vietnam, and so forth.
대자 용도라야 톰라지는 소셔 받는 말이지. 다 토모 많이 받는데 라마니. 대시 감도 노발에 지내는 사지 소셔 와 말이지.
And then when he taught the Tantra teachings, he didn't give it in public, openly in public, but privately to the audience that has the disposition to receive those teachings. And then the teachings of the Tantra didn't flourish much in other countries, but mostly went to Tibet. And so Buddha taught three different turnings of the wheel of Dharma like that. And after Buddha passed away, then the Mahayana teachings degenerated in India. And then after like 400 years, after 400 years of Buddha's passing away, then there came a great master called Nagarjuna, and then who revived the Mahayana teachings in India. And so Nagarjuna mostly revived the teachings of the Madhyamika school, or the middle way school. And then after 900 years of Buddha's passing away, then there came another great master called Asanga, who then revived the teachings, Mahayana teachings of the Buddha, of the mind-only school tradition. So the teachings that flourished in Tibet came after these great masters. Before that, during Buddha Sera Je Muni's time, there was no teachings of the Buddha available in Tibet. And so because of that, many Theravadins don't accept the Mahayana teaching as Buddha's teaching. They say that it was made up, by Nagarjuna, Asanga, and so forth.
안다 산제 근양을 낸데 사와지 테네 로 mambo지라는 대화 친구 때마다 너바로 왔어.
Because after Buddha passed away, after many years of Buddha's passing away, the teachings of the Mahayana tradition are almost completely, gone or degenerated.
안에 된게 대화면 왜 대화를 들으실라는 대화 좁제사지 받쳐서 말했어.
And then in the Theravadin tradition, again, they have like these subdivisions of the Theravadin tradition. There are like the 18 subdivisions.
그러다 산제 근양을 봐지 로 납주 두셔야 됐대. 바라 안에 건도 로 디셜로지 되는 봐지 테마스물한 까도만도 테마스물 돼 버렸어.
And then, so during after Buddha passed away, then they had counseling with all the Sangha members. They met, had a big meeting or counseling for 3 different occasions.
아니 당보대 아니 다다 좀 방압자를 거기요. 내가 꿈가오대 아니 산지 좀 되겠다. 샵시에나 맨나이다. 아니 콜레 체험만으로 제세 제네야. 아니 안돼 산지 좀 되는데 그냥 내가 안돼 산지 좀 되는데 딱 그다음에 산지 회수 샤워를 했어. 아니 회수형이 건강을 틈만으로 제다네. 아니 봐봐. 그래서 봐. 아니 틈으로 제다네. 아니 기도는 비샤워를 했어. 대포그 제대 가나 대가 안에 단다 건강을 다좀 도말 다 까도 저나 다좀 거고 그래서 왔더니 다좀 납자 나와라. 아니 저다 망보지 사진 그냥 다좀 망보지 다 소소신을 팩 그냥 돼 버렸어. 근데 단이야 그래서 까다네 다 단도 다좀 봐서 고마 쪽쪽매. 근데 나도 사실 땜바야 좀 거를 했으니 아니 되니 나좀 납자 십자급 고금을 하여 말했어. 아니 다 납자로 와라 고수고 얘들아니 고수 다좀 막고 말 건가고 다좀 맞 차야겠다. 아니 코란이 바제 땅 아니 티 고금 잡주 아니 곰 잡는 거 다좀 막까지 톱나 아니 지 영원에 아니 다 코스 산지 좀 냠도 해야 아니 그 맞주는 안 되게다 그만 안들이 고서 아니 도지네 다 맞지셔 버렸어.
And so during those counseling or meeting conference, like a conference, where they gather together and talk to each other about all these teachings, the Buddha that they have heard. So somebody says, "Oh, I heard Buddha say this. I heard Buddha say this." And maybe you see in the sutras many times that's at that time so and so heard and so forth, right? So that's because in all these the arhats at that time, so many of them they become arhat, right? So they follow the Buddha's teaching, and immediately or after some time they become arhat. So arhat is 4 destroyers who have abandoned or freed themselves from samsara, so they are free from the cyclic existence, the cycle of birth and death. So they can stay as long as they want, they can leave anytime they want, so they have that power, right? So they're free from that circle of life and death. And so that's called arhat. And so in order to have that, the meeting or the conference going on, they have to have 500 arhats. Because when Buddha passed away, many said, "Oh, there's no use to live." So they also passed away. So they also passed away to parinirvana, to liberation. But then the substitute of Buddha, or the successor of the Buddha was Mahakashyapa. The Mahakashyapa and then made a rule or gave an order to all the arhats to not to pass away. So you're not allowed to pass away because we have to preserve the teachings of the Buddha, bring together all the teachings of the Buddha and preserve it. And then during that time they had only 499 hours they can gather together. And Ananda, who was the attendant of the Buddha, was an arhat at that time, and he was given punishment, to do a practice. So there was the reason for the punishment was that because he didn't do this, he didn't do that, and so forth. So there were like 8 different kind of punishments that was given to him, and then he going through those punishments, through the practice, and then he became arhat. And then there were like 500 arhats, and then they built a big throne for him because he is the closest one to the Buddha. and he has this power of memory, of not forgetting anything. So he remembered everything Buddha said, and then he chanted. He recited everything that Buddha said, and that's what was written down in the scriptures now.
아니 근데 니바로 안에 때 니바 가시 당월에 다 전화 되는 거. 지래야 저랑게 산지 좀 된들이야. 안에 손님 미자 롱어전에 피어래 대처 노를 해서. 뭐 산지 좀 된데 아니 샤라지던데 아니 신이 다 되게 뉴신에다 공부토가 계셔요. 근데 저랑게 아니 동생들 남아 샤와이나 아니 땡인데 있어. 아니 딱가로 라도 피그리네. 초대 맞아지 미사라 발롱 자와도 대신에니 저랑게 샤라피던데 거 말해서.
So there are, like I said, 8 different punishments for making 8 different mistakes. So what are I don't remember all of the mistakes that he made, but one of the mistakes that they blamed him for was begging alms for Buddha. They said you should not have begged for regular ordinary food for Buddha. If you have raised the begging bowl of the Buddha, then the food of concentration would have appeared just like that, and didn't have to go through that gross ordinary food. It is said that because they begged for alms of the ordinary regular food, and after eating which, then Buddha became sick and then caused to pass away like that. Anyway, so that was the reason, and then that was one of the punishment for begging for alms and for Buddha.
아니 저랑 그 산적인 남자 때문에 가려야 남자 제가 삐 먹을 전 때문에 대처 맞아 버려 막히 버려서 반도서 시장 와이나 아니 바주 섬기 라다 담 많이 거니네 되게 섬도 그래서 그때 맞아 봐지야 산적인 남자 또 받쳐 그래서.
And then other punishment was that he was blamed for making mistake of sewing Buddha's robe. When he was sewing it, and of course those days you didn't have machine, right? So with the needle, string and needle. So when you need one hand to hold it, right? So what you usually do is people just put it under your knee, hold it there, and then other hand hold on end, and then with one hand you go through the needle. So that was disrespectful. To put Buddha's robe under your feet and under your knee, like that, is disrespectful. So if you have just raised it, then the gods and nagas would have already, would have held it, and you just have to sew it like that. If you had it, raised in the front, but instead you did it, you put it underneath, which was disrespectful. So therefore, that was one of the punishment.
아니 신바지에다 구시나가 사전도 왔어. 아니 산지 좀 내가 딱골 다 수부트에서 와. 아니 초대 쏘바지. 그래서 저랑 그냥 추도돼. 아니 산지 좀 내가 그주서 줘대. 저랑 노를 했어. 그때 니바 당을 했어.
And then another blame that he was another punishment he was blamed for was about bathing Buddha with the dirty water. So he says they use this regular dirty water to bathe Buddha.
안에 다 대라도 간지 제소 드레전에 그 니바다 안에 니바다 있고 제대고 아니 그 니바다 다야지도 곰전에 그 다좀 덮쳐줘야 아니 저저 딱 코산에 다다 산지 송차상 고고에 뒤치더래서.
And so these punishments were for him, to do the practice so that he can purify all these negativities that was obstructing him from becoming arhat. So then once he become arhat, then they can receive all these teachings, which he have heard, from Buddha.
안에 되도 안에 너와치 몸바치 너디 되네 되는 숨이라 되는 숨데 안에 다 가가 돼 버려서.
And so then there came these teachings, of they call it baskets of teachings, right? So 3 baskets of teachings, So the basket of teachings on Vinaya, which is about the rules, right? And then about the knowledge, and then about the sutra. And so all these different 3 different baskets of teachings came from there.
와다테 텔레다 텔레전에 다 산지 땜바데 지금 삼삼 마냠 삼삼 바친다 단대 방가서 내대 버리더라고.
So anyway, like that, Buddha's teachings went down, degenerated, and then it was revived, and then degenerated again. So little by little, and so we still have a little bit here until this present time, and to be able to do some practice.
That day, there's a little bit story. Then that 텔레가 산지 산지 좀 내게 다 추고 담보데 가지 송와나 아니 공가데 담보로 송와레스.
And then, so anyway, this is the teachings, the history of the Buddha, how he, passed down the teachings. But anyway, the first turning of the wheel of Dharma, which, happened like yesterday, was given in Varanasi, to the first 5 disciples.
안에 콘소다 양 기와 몸불라야는 산지 좀 되던 저와 이런 데 해서.
And these beings, who were the first disciples of the Buddha, just didn't met him coincidentally like that in that lifetime. They had a connection with him in many previous lifetimes.
근데 산지 좀 된데 그중 뭐마시야 샹초세메 깔라야 안에 글루 안에 딱모 마고 심바다 알아 안에 대 보고도 저던다 안에 고차돼서 나는 공화돼서 못 차돼 그래서.
And then it said that in previous lifetime, one time when Buddha was born as a prince of that country, and he was going out to roam around his place, and then he saw these 5 tigers with the 5 cubs, and they were dying of hunger, and then he gave his body to them and satisfied them with his body, and then he prayed to be able to satisfy them with his teaching in the future when he become Buddha, and that's what the connection that brought them in this lifetime to become the first disciple of Buddha.
산지 좀 된데 그야 그때 딱 그냥이야 레 답이 저왕 앞자 마답이 저왕 앞자 그때는 마몰라 뒤값 관가다 콘도 되어야 되거든요 봤어 인서로.
And so they said that before Buddha performed the deed of becoming Buddha in that lifetime, he had many lifetimes before, like there's 500 impure lives and 500 pure lives. So during those time, life rebirths, and during that time, he had connection with these first 5 disciples.
Okay. 안에 된대지네다 선제 좀 안에 사제네 샤보주지 셰글라 추송요 말해서.
And then after becoming Buddha, or becoming enlightened, at that time, Buddha didn't teach, for 49 days.
And the other take up course that sort of membership, Titan Kawan, so and
And so at that time, the first disciples, were there, but they were not ripened, in a sense that they were not prepared to receive the teachings, because of the time and place and so forth. And so that's why he did not teach at that time.
When I chance on the Peshawana, Chuzo de Zuni, the Gujutawan Zura was. Chanzina Tikam do Yoris in a Goyer in a chance on Rodego Samba de Yomar, Kajana, take up chance to the Mayomar was.
So this center, started maybe 89, right? 89, 90. And so it was there since then, but you only had a chance to come now. Right? So you might have heard about it, you didn't hear about it. It was already here, you were here, but you did not, you were not prepared or not ripened, to be able to come to the center and receive teachings and do practices. So we have to create a cause, right? So of course we have to create a cause, but also has to meet with the condition. If you don't meet with the condition, then just even if you have the cause, you will not ripen. And so then upon the making a request, by the the king of the god Indra and Brahma, and then he saw that they are ripened now, they are prepared. So he went to Varanasi, met them, and then gave them teachings.
Okay, and
then what he taught, as you know, is the 4 Noble Truths. So the 4 Noble Truths is the common practice of all different traditions of Buddhism, whether they are Theravadins or the Mahayana. So in order to do especially in order to do the practice of the Tantra, you have to first know, the teachings about 4 Noble Truths. So when he first taught, he taught by teaching in 3 different ways, and 12 different categories.
Okay.
So first he said, understand the suffering. So first you have to identify the suffering or identify the problems. So if we don't identify the problems, then we will not even know that we have a problem, right?
Tendeza Jatichimba Shawala or Ranga Tendon, Nidri, some Mulamtaya Manina, Jita Kawanis, and the Yanji Tensambala, Tambo Suzu, Dunga Hakoko,
So first we have to understand our own suffering, then we can apply that to the others, to other sentient beings, just like Shantideva said in his Guide to the Buddhist Way of Life, that if we don't think about ourselves even in a dream, then there's no way we can think about others. So if we are sick, first we have to know what sickness we have, right? And without knowing that, we will not be able to apply any kind of medications, right? So therefore, first, Buddha said, identify the suffering. And then secondly, he said, so So I made a mistake. So first one is describing, right? So saying that this is true suffering.
Okay.
So then he said, oh, this is true suffering. So anything that we don't like, we don't wish, it's called suffering.
And
then they said this is called true origin. The true origin, is the origin of the suffering, where the suffering come from, and those are the delusions like ignorance and so forth. And then he said this is the true cessation. The cessation is where you have ceased or freed yourself from all the sufferings.
And then Shivadala, and then the lamp of
and then the fourth one is the true path. He says this is the true path. The true path is the path or means to achieve the cessation or the freedom from all the sufferings. And so first, he just introduced the Four Noble Truths that way.
Okay.
So the first, is the identity of the Four Noble Truths. Right? So this is the true suffering, this is the true origin, and so forth like that. So he identified the Four Noble Truths, and then so that's the entity of the first is giving advice on the entity, and then the second one is giving advice on the action. So the action is understanding the suffering, right? It is so you have to understand or you have to identify the suffering. And so you have to understand the suffering, identify the suffering, or understand the suffering, and then you have to abandon the origin. So if you want to be free from the suffering, then you have to abandon the cause of the suffering, which is the origin, the true origin. So if we understand the disease, then we have to find out what is the cause of the disease. Is it the food, or any kind of things? Then you avoid that, and then you will not be, you will not get that disease.
Like example, allergy was food allergies.
Allergy.
Allergy allergy
So for example, like many of us, we have different kind of allergies, right? So what kind of allergy we have, and what is it, where it come from? Some we have allergy to the foods, or some to the weather, or to the clothes and so forth. Right? So once we know that, then we avoid that. If we avoid that, then we will not get the allergy.
Who has allergy from pets? No one has. That's correct. Who has allergy for food? Hinto.
Fruit?
Fruit. Hinto.
Fruit.
Fruit.
Any kind of fruits?
No.
Mango.
Yes, eh?
What happens?
I skipped my mouth starts to itch.
Ah, okay.
Took a long time to figure out.
So if you avoid the mango, then you will not get that, right? So it's just like that. So if you know what is the cause where it's coming from, then you abandon that or you avoid that, and then you will not get the result.
대다 동아 시바샤 동아 다 하고 같이 와서 동아 시는 다 대용사 저 근주되면 와서 그걸 다 방고다 나와서.
So therefore, first you have to understand, the disease, the allergy, or the suffering, and then after that you understand, you abandon the cause from where it comes from.
근데 저런다. 근주 빠 연면은 근주도 코빠 요서면 가서는 근주 빠에도 근주 빠요 빠와서 요래다. 하거나 아니 코빠서 될 걸라 그래서.
And then you see, is it possible to be able to abandon the origin? Is it possible to abandon the origin? And it says yes, it is possible because there's such thing called cessation. And then that's why Buddha taught the cessation, the third.
Food allergy na food temasana food te karota nasa da tawa nasa da mayawade ko yorwas tingena.
And so if you know that if you know that the allergy, and then you know where you come from, and then if you abandon that or avoid that, then you have the freedom from that allergy, right? So there's a possible to abandon that because there's this freedom from the allergy. And then what do you have to do in order to achieve that? So then the third one is achieving, abandoning the origin and then achieving the cessation, right? And then in order to achieve this cessation, what do you have to do? What action do you have to apply? You have to meditate or practice the path. So practice the true path. So here the true path is referring to the wisdom realizing the selflessness, or wisdom realizing emptiness. So the wisdom realizing emptiness becomes the antidote to the ignorance of not knowing the reality, and therefore it abandons that. So when you avoid that that way, then you can achieve the cessation.
프리즈나게 알레지 푸드 차감 코 메와서 셔와이나 아니 액션 때 콜레가 맞아왔지 요 말을 썸 하고 주고 배워 액션 제고도 내가 막 이거도 왔어 대 나시 제와이나 아니 그 알레지도 용어 말로 왔을 때 주발했어.
And so if you know that you get allergy from this food, then you throw away the food or do something about that food. So if you just leave it there, you might get it, right? So you have to do the action of throwing it away or getting rid of it, and then you can achieve that freedom from the allergy.
Okay. 대다 동보 동아시 바샤 그지 보면 정말로 공부하시 대라 안에 대반이바 아니 샤왈 담바스라.
So that's the second, right? So the advice on action.
아니 다 죽자 죽자서 was 그러죠. dembashi jechaso tangdu shila yo adyan ta damboda dunga shiba sha message yores.
And then so those are the like I said, taught in 3 different ways, the 12 categories. So that was 8, right? So first is identifying, and then second is applying the action, which is understanding, abandoning, and achieving, and practicing, right? So those are the action. And then the third category, the third 4 categories are on the suffering. It says that suffering, you should know the suffering, but but there's no way you can know the suffering. So again, there's interpretation or explanation of that meaning.
Tatele shetan indu usirwa. Shetan chila dunga shiba chagro da inaya. Dada triving ochu dunga ba sheyo mares so chindu.
So there's 2 different ways, or may have a couple of different ways, to explain about that. So there's you have to understand the suffering. There's no way you can understand suffering. So what is kind of contradicts there, right? You have to understand the suffering, but there's no way you can understand the suffering that exists from its own side.
Shetan nilaya nibala dunga shiba chagro ine dunga chiga kodana yanjuti sheg tabi tago mares yo.
And then the other explanation they give is that it says you have to understand the suffering, but once you have understood it, once you have understood it once, then you don't have to understand it again. So that suffering which you cannot understand is suffering referring to the one that you have already understood.
간제 소소 강시셔 다라 다양 대시 답시 다랑 고 냠내 제마도 양 지 셴바지 싶다고 말해. 다시 막아. 고 텔레파트니 고 테스케요 말로.
So once you have understood that, that's it. You don't have to understand it more. There's nothing more you can understand. There's nothing more you can search to understand. There are two different ways of explaining like that. And then it also says that you have to abandon the origin, but there is no way you can abandon the origin. So again, it can means that refer to the origin exists from its one side, or origin that you have abandoned once, is abandoned. You do not come back again like that. Same thing with the achieving cessation. You have to achieve the cessation, but there's no way you can achieve the cessation. It's the same way you can apply that. Same way you say you have to meditate on the path, but there's no way you can meditate on the path. And so, so this is how Buddha, explained to the disciples. But when you practice, this is how it is explained. This is the way it was explained. But the way you practice, is different. So the first, comes the cause, right? The cause here is the delusion, especially the ignorance. Because of the ignorance, then there comes the suffering. So just like the allergy comes from eating that food, then it comes from the eating the food, right? So if you haven't had the food, then you will not get it, right? So without eating the food, you will not get that allergy. So the origin here, as I said, is the ignorance. Ignorance is not knowing the reality, especially, and not knowing in general is ignorance, right? So because of ignorance, because of not knowing the proper way, then we made a mistake in the things that we do, things we say, and so forth. And by meditating on the path, then you achieve, the cessation. So without meditating on the path, there's no way you can achieve the cessation. So the way it happens is first you meditate on the path, and then you achieve cessation. But why is it that the true cessation was explained before the true path? Because that's because if you know the result, then you will strive to create or abandon the cause.
Okay. Oh, do you know? lam gom sana da nganzu dame to me chuzu china to na chi to ni to me tengre was. Then nganzu lam de go ya mundu tengre was. Kosida. To ni dame to me na lam de me wa yinna. Then nganzu lam de nyamle che mundu was.
lamde mewa yana chida.
Karo da. Tanganzo lamde nyamle che mundu samgara was. Kade chuzu to ni da dame to yona da ta kare. Kade mewa na chuzu sam. Oh, china da nga lamde nyamle che mundu was tengre was.
So like I said, the true path is referring to the wisdom lies in emptiness or selflessness. But then if you don't have that, can you still practice the true path? Like if you have not realized emptiness, right? If you don't have the realization of emptiness, then how will you be able to achieve the cessation? How will you be able to abandon the delusions, right? And so you might think like that. So because I don't have that realization, so therefore I will not be able to practice the true path. So, but if you have that realization, then you have no problem, right? You can say, oh yeah, I know that, I can practice it. So do any of you have realization of emptiness or selflessness?
Maybe I did. Some people say I'm very close there. some people like that. In a tenement, the Ganjing, as also Magiwa, Chu, Pongwe, Tramdala, Givala. They as well tell Lamding Sweden do yours.
So some of you might feel that, oh yeah, I do have realized this, but I don't want to tell it in public.
It's secret.
Secret, keep it secret. Or you might feel that, oh no, I'm not there yet, but I'm very close to that. Do you feel like that? Maybe, right? Anyway, but if you don't have that, like me, if you don't have that, then then you can do the practice of abandoning the 10 non-virtuous actions, right? Then that can also become like a true path.
But Magiwachi Hakon, Temajavatala, Gavachela, Techana, Magiwachi, Chevik,
So there's the similar, the true path, not the actual true path, but the facsimile, true path, a similar true path. Because by abandoning that, you can be free from certain kind of suffering, not from the entire suffering, but you can be free from certain kind of suffering. So the suffering that you will experience from creating the 10 non-virtuous action will be freed. You'll be free from that suffering if you abandon the 10 non-virtuous action.
Okay? That is a Koto Masavena, Koto Self-Dumani was.
So that can be a facsimile, the true path. And just like if you don't become angry, you will not have that suffering of frustration, right? And so just by thinking that I'm not getting angry will not help you to not become angry. So but you have to meditate on the antidote of the anger. So mainly it's meditating. So I don't know if there's a difference between I don't know how you feel about anger and hatred, right? So if you hate somebody, or if you are angry with somebody, so there's two different things, right? So for the anger, we will say patience, it's the actual antidote. You have to practice patience, So if you don't have patience, then there's no way you can kill the anger. So you have to practice patience. But the hatred, is like different things, right? So if you hate somebody, so what do you have to meditate on that, to not hate somebody is the loving kindness. So if you love somebody, you will not hate that person, right? So if you practice on loving that person, you will not hate. So the love will be loving kindness, will be the antidote for hatred.
And the Shamba Nije Kewalaya, Shamba Tagad Kegmarit, and Jinsen Samba would repack
So the loving kindness and compassion, so that can be the direct antidote, for overcoming hatred. And to develop that, it doesn't just happen, right? So you can say, oh, I'm compassionate, but it doesn't. Just by saying I'm compassionate, you don't become compassionate. You have to understand the reason why, you should, why you want others to be free from suffering. All these things, when you have that, then you will become compassionate. So just like it says, by taking the example for your own body, don't cause harm to others. So that we harm others in many different ways, right? Knowingly or unknowingly, right? It happened. Did it happen to you?
Right.
So, but of course, we don't do it intentionally. We don't say, oh, I'm going to make this person angry, so therefore I'm going to do this. But knowingly or unknowingly, you do this or say this, and then because of that, the other person become angry. So just like we don't have any intention to make others angry, the others don't have that either. Others doesn't say, oh, I'm going to make this person angry and then make us become angry. It's not like that. So they are also, under the influence of some kind of delusions or misunderstanding, and because of that, they say or do something, and which makes us to become angry. So when we become angry, first thing we should understand, we should understand this situation, and then think is that, that person is not to be blamed, and that he didn't intentionally do it. And the moment you think like that, then anger will already become much less. So that's one way of thinking. And then another way of thinking is also to think that others are same as oneself in wanting to be happy and not wanting any sufferings. And then thirdly, you can think that how others are very kind to us. So how do we think about that kindness is by taking the example of our own present mother. And then many people say that in Buddhism you don't have a same right, the males and female gender. That's a kind of racism in gender. The female don't have the same right as the male. But actually I would say, female have more right than the males. And so, because you have to meditate on the recognition of all sentient beings as your mother, right? As your mother, not your real mother, but as your mother. So, so without that, there's no way you can generate compassion. Without understanding that, you will not have the loving kindness or compassion. Without loving kindness and compassion, there's no way you can achieve enlightenment. And so therefore, you have to first recognize all sentient beings as your mother, and then you have to remember their kindness, and then you have to develop that wish, wanting to repay their kindness, and then then after that it says, so how do you want to repay? Is for them to be free from for them to be happy, which is love, and then free them from all the sufferings, which is compassion. And then with that, then there comes the special intention or superior thought, taking the responsibility upon oneself, and then from there comes the thought wanting to achieve enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. And then, so that's the process, how you come to develop the mind of enlightenment. But so many people might think that, I don't know, I'm not sure if my mother is really kind to me or not. So then you can see yourself, when you become a mother or father, then you know that how much love or care you have towards your child, right? That's the similar or even more, that your parents had towards you. And so if we think about the love and the kindness that our mother has shown to us, if we think about that and then think about that towards all sentient beings, then there's no way we'll generate any kind of anger or hatred thoughts towards them. And so, so when you want to stop anger towards somebody or hatred towards somebody, you can't just say, I'm not going to get angry, and you don't get angry. That's not possible. It will not work that way, Just saying by saying that I'm not going to get angry, it will not help you to not become angry. So you have to think about all these reasons. You have to meditate, get familiar with that thought, why you should not get angry. You have to think about all these reasons, As many reasons as you think, more effective it will be, for not getting angry. So that's how you abandon anger. Otherwise, it's not like just by thinking I'm not going to get angry, you can get rid of anger. It's not like that. And it's not like you pull up the switch and it will turn on the light, and pull down the switch, it will turn off the light. It's not like that. And it doesn't happen that easily. So you have to think about all the reasons. So you can imprison, you can throw the body in the prison, but you can't throw your mind in the prison. Can you? Can you lock your mind? So sometimes it's, I'm so frustrated, I'm so stressed, I'm going to keep myself inside the room. We do that, right? But can we really keep our mind there? No, the mind, even though we keep our body there, but our mind is roaming around all over the place. So we have to train our mind, train the mind, to think in that way, and by thinking that, then we can control the mind, and then we can eventually be able to, stop those negative emotions. So it's not that we can't lock the mind. We can lock the mind, but it's just that we're not trained. We're not, we're not able to. But it can be if we study and practice in the right way. So this mind, of ours is very, important, to control it. To be conscientious about it, because this is the one which creates all the problems, and this is the one which creates all the happiness also.
Okay.
And so the first teaching of the Buddha on the Four Noble Truths was taught in this way, like 3 different ways, and with the 12 different categories. So then they said, like, then you can expand it, to the 16 features, of the Four Noble Truths. And so each Noble Truth is explained, with the 4 features on it. So like you can say that so then when we talk about the true suffering, then there are 4 features. This is impermanence, empty, impermanence, suffering, empty, and selfless. So there's when we talk about sometimes these terms that we use in English, like suffering and in the nature of suffering. So in the nature of suffering, but doesn't mean it's suffering. So our body is in the nature of suffering. This table is in the nature of suffering, you can say, but not really. In the nature of suffering, in the sense that it brings you suffering, right? I can say it that way. So nature of suffering, and it says this body of ours, the aggregate, the contaminated aggregate of ours, and is suffering. It's the suffering. It's the nature of suffering because it is produced by the power of karma and delusion. So anything that is produced by the power of karma and delusion can be nature of suffering. So true suffering and true suffering are different again. So the suffering, is the one that you experience, right? And the nature of suffering, can be a thing, can be a thing. So anything that is produced, by the power of karma and delusion.
Okay.
So and then in the true origin, this is a cause, condition, the cause, origin, condition, and excellent conditions.
다운도 머리 받치 제나 올라 was 젤라 안에 젤세데 젤 제젤이 제가네 아니 동안데 미제 메셔서
So you can say then the self-grasping ignorance, right? The self-grasping ignorance, is a true origin, because is the cause giving rise to a true suffering.
아니 근주에서 동아 슈타 제베셔 동아 몸보 제베셔
Is a origin of all, because it gives rise to many sufferings.
저 그주 께 아랍제 다들 자상에 등대도 너무 좋아.
So I'm not sure about other explanation about that.
그래는 다산님도 뒤 올마죠. 간지 뒤 두시네 덴바렐라 체주 시시잖아요. 대신마다 찌르고
So anyway, it's explained in this book, which will come later. So there's 16 features of the Four Noble Truths. So 4 features on each truth.
두시네 레레레 판데시잖아요. 다 섬다는 아주 지금도 야우슈 제에서 봐.
So in this way, if we think about these the sufferings and the origin of the sufferings one by one with many different reasons, then it will make sense to us.
Okay. Like that. 다드네. 당가서 저와는 저와당하셨어요.
So yeah, we'll stop here, and if you have any question, we can have maybe a few question answers.
Some discussions. Yes.
When we're meditating, when using analogy, different people have different allergies. So a physician will say, this is your specific allergy. There are 2 paths. One is the objective, where we talk about emptiness, compassion, love, and kindness. But what about, should we meditate, where's the balance on our karma? Because we have different allergies, we have different karma. How to get rid of the karma? Is it the same for everybody? We just think about emptiness and that gets rid of our karma, or being unique, do we have to go inside and understand our specific karma?
가로.
그래, 다레 먼저 동안 녀한테 레미도 사지라. 다 레미도 사인데 다 레레레 전에 도고르기 즉 님부 직전에 되는 데 레상만 메워서 요레스. 배는 가서 알러지나 다 알러지 디스 되어라. 알러지 딜레멘데 알러지 딜레멘데다 맨 코라고 쳐다보지어라. 알러지 쳐다보지어라. 딜라티나시든 딜라멘 쳐다보지어라. 티나시르기 다른 다 상말랑 가서 동반이금 동반이금나 전 상만대 자요레스.
제요데 시다 소소레 템포레 요레스. 옛나야 차상 님보데 동반이다 담에 거만 차상 님으로 요레스.
답변은 또 자다 코로다 돼서 그러죠.
그리고 내자도 코로야 코로서 내자는 문도 보고 봐. 공조에나 샴바고 봐. 소소레 요요레스. 옛나 차상 그 짜위 님보데 아니 동반이다. 아니 담에 봐. 공바이나 차상 님은 뭐 자르고 그래서.
So yes, of course, there's particular ones, right? So there are particular allergies. So for this allergy, to take this medicine and that like that. So we also have different delusions, like so the problems that comes from attachment, problem that comes from anger, problem that comes from jealousy, and those things like that. So those problems we have specific cause, right? And then there's a specific method, So in order to overcome the problem that came from attachment, you have to, target the attachment. So then that way, so if you target attachment, then you will not get rid of the problem that comes from the anger. That will not get rid of it. But emptiness is the root of, the ignorance is the root of all this. The attachment comes from ignorance. The anger comes from ignorance also. Jealousy comes from ignorance also. We become jealous because of not knowing the reality. We become angry because of not knowing the reality. We become attached because of not knowing the reality. So if you abandon the origin of all, which is the ignorance, right? Is the root of all the delusions and all the karma. So therefore, if you overcome the ignorance, which is only by meditating on emptiness, then you can overcome all this. So emptiness is the root, antidote. So to overcome all the problems.
아니 니제다 샤마도 담만 보자게 그래서.
And of course, so that's we're talking about the suffering, right? So, but in order to have that says the altruistic attitude, right? So the wanting, the intention to help others and so forth. Then on top of that, you need also compassion and loving kindness. Yeah? So without that, you will not have that an altruistic thought. and will not have wish to achieve enlightenment for the benefit of others. So on top of that, then you need these two also.
Okay? Yes, then? Yes.
You were talking before about the nature of suffering, and then you said the origin, self-grasping, arise to many suffering. Then you said origin, condition, and excellent condition. What are those two?
Those were talking about the four features of the true origin. So that's Geshe first talked about those two only, but he doesn't remember all of that. But it will come in more detail in this book. Yeah. Okay.
당연히 이 주마대 안에 도서를 겐 기꾼주 들어. 네. 아니 감도 줄을 시에 와서 빠지대 벌면도.
안 되는데. 네. So actually, not in this book. He should say he has in other books, so he will have to read that and explain to you next time. Maybe it's somewhere in the other part of this book. Let's say he does. It's not there on that context, where we are now, but maybe it comes later.
I'm too lazy. I didn't read under 2 pages. Maybe after 2 pages they have. Yes.
Well, that's similar to my question. Is I wanted to read more about these 16 features, and I looked in the index, and there's really only one paragraph. There are only names of features. It doesn't explain them.
Oh, okay.
So I wonder if there's another text, and if it's translated to English, that we can refer to. And what about anything like in
시대 열하다.
깝도 뭐 시대나 열었어.
네.
대원 뭐 여제. 얘도 뭐 여제.
네.
깝도 시대 이가 좋다.
So the first chapter of the ornament of clear realization, the first chapter, not that root text only, but the text on the general meaning of the general meaning of the first chapter of the ornament of clear realization. So that text, that's the philosophy text, right? So the text, like the first chapter, the first chapter. So the first chapter has it, so it explains in detail about that. So if maybe I don't know if that is translated in English, maybe that is right. So the fourth chapter we have in English, right? So I don't know if we have the first chapter. So anyway, it explains about that in there. So yeah, it only mentions about the features, the list of the features, but doesn't go into explanation about that. But this first chapter explains about it. Yeah.
아니 다들 당보도 가는 게
아니라 먼저 라게 됐다. 람림 안 두사. 대단 대단을 여야 다 혼자 대 장가대 모두 지기 뒤던데 쉐면 됐어.
당가도 변나 동화 변나 그러고 뭐다 동화 위 제주셔야 돼. 뭐다 동화 저.
그래도 동화 라야 가르쳤 다음에 가서 겨울에 먼저 돼. 장가도 빼졌다네 쉐나 하파.
아니 가서 좀 빼졌다네. 만드시 점스러워.
So Geshe said next time he will bring that text and the ornament of clear realization text, and then we can go through that. So Geshe said, you have homework and he has homework. Your homework is to remember those lists, which you have them, right?
Mary and I will be at the retreat with Rinpoche.
So then Geshe said he will remember. He will study the meaning, the explanation about that.
Okay, that's good. Yeah,
yeah. So it explains all this, the reasons, why it is called true. Why is it true suffering? So the suffering is called why is true suffering, and why impermanence is called true suffering, and so forth.
Like example, we say we call Devra mom. Because why we call mom? Because she has kid. Why we call kid? Who has kid their mom? This is nature.
So just like you call someone mom because of having a child, right? If she has a child, then she becomes mom. If she doesn't have a child, she doesn't become. So the child depends on mom. Mom also depends on child.
Amarada Kuchuana, go Amazon Kanilagan, go Maros, condition or that they lagan do.
So explanation like that, you know. So just as example, giving an example of how you can explain. You can't just say, oh, she's mom. If you just say she's mom, then that's it, right? But why is she called mom? Because she is a kid, you know. Therefore, she's called mom. And thus she depends on a kid, you know, to be a mom, and so forth. So all these things is explanation on that, to you know, to make us understand better. So, like I mentioned earlier, you know, so the nature of suffering and suffering. So, nature of the suffering is that which is produced by power of karma and delusion. So, because of that, you can say this table or this cup, you know, is a nature of suffering. The reason is because it's produced by karma, power of karma and delusion, our karma and delusion, right? So then it's first, you know, impermanence, you know, right? You know, because it disintegrates moment by moment, therefore it's called impermanent. So it's impermanence is suffering, you know, because it's created or produced by the power of karma and delusion.
Like that.
So just like that, you know, there's other features, you know, of the true cessation and true path. So if when you're given a reason like that, then you can understand why it's called such and such, right? Why is it called true suffering? Or why is it called nature of suffering, right? So that's what you want to understand, right? So and then we talk about, you know, it's being empty and it's being selfless, you know. So I think that's So, you know, here also empty, you know, is similar to the selflessness in just like a different level of selflessness, so like, you know, easy, I mean, gross and subtle. So when you talk about empty of existing self-sufficiently or substantially, so what does that mean, like self-sufficiently and substantially? That's a little bit more harder to understand. And then when you say it's because it's the selfless, you know, when it says it's a selfless because it's, you know, so that's the selfless is here again referring to the empty of existing prominently, you know, and a single, or, you know, as one, as or independently. So if you exist, you know, permanently, you know, as one, you know, one meaning, you know, not depending on others, just by itself, and then independently, you know, not dependent on others, you know, by itself. So it's a similar, right? So when that is easier to understand than to understand it, you know, being empty of self-sufficiently or substantially existing.
Okay, now we don't talk too much there, and more confused. Any other question? But yeah, this is you guys also just remember that, just numbers. You know, memorize the number, then we can explain. Okay? Okay, thank you. Then we stop.
Turn to page 39 for the Thanksgiving Manda offering. Saji Buki Juching Meta Pram Rirang Lingjini Degem Padi Sangye Jingdu Mekte Ovaki Droku Nam Dakshing Lacha Pasho Jesu Lame Kutse Rapten Ching Nam Katrin Le Chok Chugye Padang Lopsan Tende Drume Sasungi Drowe Mansal Daktu Negyoshi Idam Guru Radhamandala Kam Niryatayami. From my two collections, Vasa's that I have amassed from working with effort at this practice for a great length of time, may become the chief leading Buddha for all those whose minds was demised blinded by ignorance. Even if I do not reach this state, may I be held in your loving compassion for all my lives, my Jeffrey. May I find the best of complete greater parts of the teachings, and may I please all the Buddhas by practicing. Using skillful means drawn by the strong force of compassion, may I clear the darkness from the minds of all beings, with the points of the path as I understand them. May I hold Buddha's teachings for a very long time, with my heart going out with great compassion in whatever direction the most precious teachings have not yet spread, or once spread have declined. I reveal this treasure of happiness and aid. May the minds of those who wish for liberation be granted bounteous peace, and the Buddha's deeds be nourished for a long time. By even this great course to enlightenment completed, due to the wondrous virtuous conduct of the Buddhas and their children, may all humans and non-humans who meet adversity and make things conducive for practicing the excellent paths never be parted in any of their lives from the purest path praised by the Buddhas. Whenever someone makes an effort to act in accordance with the tenfold Mahayana virtuous practices, may they always be assisted by the mighty ones, and may oceans of prosperity spread everywhere. In that snow mountain encircled land, source of every benefit and joy, may Lord Tenzin Gyatso Chen receive, remain in life till samsara send. Dong Ni Ning Je, Zung Du Ju Bil, Che Che Sal Te, Kan Che Oin Den Rui Gun, Chana Bemo, Tenzin Gyatso La, So Desu, Page 49, Shotang Life Prayer from the Lama Zopa Rinpoche. Tuk Tsul Chang Jing Jang Gung Gyao Wei, Tenzin Gyong Peo Wei Kunzo Do Ko Tse, Jok Sung Kur Wei Le Mun Tu Dru, Badak Sok Du Je Kun Nu Jak Te Sho. The prayer to always meet with perfect teachers. Your form embodies all Buddhas, your nature is that of Vajradhara, you are the root of the three jewels, homage to you, O Gurus. In short, I seek your blessings are protected to be cared for by you from birth unremittingly throughout all my lives, and thus become your chief disciple, holding every secret of your body, speech, and mind. O Protector, please grant that all be auspicious for me to be foremost among your very first circle of disciples, wherever you manifest Buddhahood, so that all my temporal and ultimate wishes, without exception, may be effortlessly and spontaneously fulfilled. And all my lives, never separated from perfect Gurus, may enjoy the magnificent Dharma by completing the qualities of the stages and paths, may I quickly attain the state of Vajradhara. Furthermore, in life after life, may I, pleasing him in return, be forever fostered by an accomplished Mahayana spiritual master, the source of every virtue in this world and beyond. In his care, may I acquire in him a firm, unshakable faith, pleasing him by every means possible, doing nothing even for an instant to disappoint. May my spiritual master impart to me every instruction and every teaching in its entirety. Having understood them faultlessly, may I practice them and be able to bring them to perfection. May I never even for a moment fall under the sway of malevolent teachers and misleading friends. Having developed in every life belief in cause and effect, renunciation, the body mind, and the pure view, may I embark upon them continually with effortless experience. In every life, may every virtuous act gathered by way of body, speech, and mind be causes solely for the welfare of others and for the purpose of highest enlightenment. Page 57 at the bottom, prayer of dedication. Through this virtue may I swiftly, having gained Guru Buddha state, place each and every sentient being without exception in that state. forevermore. On that page, bottom of page 75, Miksema. Mik Mikse way the Chen Rezik dream Kyang Wang Bo Jang Balya Gang Chen Kei Bei Tsung Gyem Tsongkhapa Lob Sang Dra Bei Jab La So
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you much, Geshe.
Have a good day.
Thank you very much, Geshe. And just also say thank you on behalf of everyone for Sangha Day, for Geshe, for all the teachings that Geshe imparted to us. We really, really appreciate it. And we have a little bit of cake afterwards, just to say thank you. And to just the cake for Sangha Day yesterday. It's International Sangha Day for FPMT.
Okay.
They will take care of our Sangha. So Geshe, thank you for being here with us. Then I will be out starting next week Friday. I'll make sure there's someone, either Michelle or Jennifer, will do announcements. So we will be starting to need a lot of help with the with getting ready for Lamrim Rinpoche. So please keep an eye on the newsletters. Let us know if you want to be part of we've got a separate mailing list for volunteers. Obviously everyone's welcome, but if you want to get on that mailing list, please let me know. So that's that, and then, starting on Wednesday, just regular classes and business as usual. Let me know if you have any questions. Thanks. Let me go cut the cake.
Thank you. Keep this side. Thank you.